What's up, everyone? Andrew Baena here, 42 Gear Street, number 5. This time around, we have Kyle Bull in this video. If you're unfamiliar with his channel, he's basically the total opposite of me. He plays mostly E standard thrash riffs and drop C hardcore riffs. Drop C hardcore riffs are kind of a little bit of a thing in common.
That's our middle ground.
It's like where we can kind of meet in the middle.
Right.
But yeah, his channel's awesome. He is most well known for being a connoisseur of high gain amps and dialing in amp tones, which, as you know, on my channel, I dabble in amps a little bit here or there, but I'm still very much like a plug-in digital kind of guy, because that's how I grew up. And I play dumb things like 8-string guitar, so this will be an interesting video because I want Kyle to dial in an 8-string guitar tone for me. So it's going to be interesting for me because, again, for 8-string guitars, I would typically probably just go straight for a plug-in. And for you, you would never play an 8-string, so it's a lot lower than anything you're probably used to dialing in. So I thought it'd be kind of an interesting experience for both of us.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm going to be using this guitar, which is the Ibanez RGD MS8 8-string guitar. I have it tuned to drop E. I think I might have mentioned this in a video already, but I have this exact guitar at home, and I'll be bringing it on tour with my band Carcosa. So if you want to see this guitar live in the States, come to a show.
I'll be
drop
there.
My pick. Hell yeah. And Kyle will be there too if you're in Philadelphia.
Pittsburgh,
sorry.
They're really close though.
But anyways, yeah, so this is the guitar, and we might be using 3 different amps. We got the Blackstar HT Venue Series Mark III over there. It's brand new. Most people probably haven't heard it yet, other than us, because we're very lucky and cool and get invited to things like this in Germany.
Yeah, you losers.
Yeah. And then we have the Blackstar St. James, which you can kind of see right there hiding behind this guitar. And last but not least, we have the Orange OR30 right there as well.
All right.
So we're going to start with the OR30. So Kyle, could you explain some things about this amp to me?
Okay, so the Orange OR30 is actually pretty interesting in the sense of like high gain metal, especially for what you're doing, because the OR30 has a tube rectifier in the power section. Now, typically most high gain amps, especially modern high gain amps, have a solid state rectification, as Andrew's eyes are already glazing over.
Wow, that's crazy.
Wow, that's crazy. So what that does is the tube rectification gives the power section more sag, which, as a dude who's playing an 8-string guitar, you want no sag. No sag. So we all get a little sag. That happens with time. But there is a way. The great thing about the OR30 is it's really reactive to how you treat the front end of the amp. So even though you've got an 8-string guitar, you got Fishman Fluence pickups. Those are going to be very, very tight, very clean. But in order to tighten this amp up, we're still going to need to kind of tailor the tone going into the front end of the amp. So that is why we have this Walrus fundamental drive pedal here. What that's going to do, that's going to take out a lot of those low frequencies from those lower strings. It's going to add some top end clarity, and it's going to hit the front end of the amp harder to add some compression, and all those things are going to help us to get a better tone. So you go ahead and play, and I'll dial you in if you want.
Sure,
all right.
Good.
And I don't ever listen to anything with more than 7 strings maybe, so this will be fun for me.
Okay, let's do it. Interesting. Okay.
How's that for you?
Sounds pretty good. The thing with Orange that always throws me off is it sounds like so different than tones that I would typically go for this style of music.
For sure.
Last time I was at 42 Gear Street, I did videos with the Orange Super Crush, and I remember being like pretty pleasantly surprised by how that sounded as well. Just because I think I'm just so used to like the 5150-ish tone,
right?
And Orange obviously sounds so different than
Very different. Yeah.
that it's like it's not bad by any means, but it's very different than something that I would expect, I guess.
Yeah, and your ears aren't used to it.
Yeah.
So like, no matter what, even if it sounds good, it might not feel comfortable. Like where you're like, I still want to like mess with that tone a little bit because it's not what my ears are used to hearing.
For sure.
So,
and it feels like there's a lot less gain than I would have expected, but it kind of doesn't really seem like it matters.
So the thing about the OR30 and most orange amps is they always have a sweet spot in the gain, and it seems to be pretty similar across most of them. So if I literally bump it up this much, I bet you it's going to have a lot more saturation.
This is like when you had less gain, I thought it sounded better for like the single string
For
things,
sure.
but then the palm muted chords didn't really like sustain.
Right.
So it's tricky because you're kind of picking one or the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sounds pretty awesome.
It sounds good. I think one thing, not that there's anything that the Walrus Drive is lacking, but for an amp like this and for an instrument like that, you're going to want something that's going to be able to tailor the low end a little bit more. You're going to want to cut out more of those low end frequencies to kind of tighten up, especially this amp. This amp is very, very fat on its own, but it's also very responsive to pedals. So if you have something that can roll off those low frequencies, and it'll tighten right up. So that's the orange. We're going to move over to the Blackstar St. James, which will be pretty different.
Yeah, and I have one of these amps already, and I think I used a 7-string on it. It sounded pretty good, but we'll try it out. Whatever you just did at the very end. That already sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I'm actually curious to see, like, take a look at it. Do you remember how you would normally dial it in?
Vaguely. Yeah, it looks about the same as what I did.
Pretty similar?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was curious how you would do it, though, because this is something I've been talking about with all of the amp guys at this event. It's very interesting to me because I always have a tendency to dial bass like way down on amps because I'm so used to hearing it coming through like my monitors and my DAW when it's mostly like plug-in bass. And in those tones, I always like get rid of a ton of the bass automatically. And I know that some people that really prefer amps, they like to leave the low end in and then mix it out later. Whereas I always do similar to what you just did, where you also seem to be taking it out on the amp end first.
Yeah.
So why do you do that versus other people who prefer to leave the low end in and then EQ it out later?
So traditionally for like how I would play, I would leave the low end in. But it's like I kind of know that the extended range instruments, especially with more strings, are just going to have inherently a lot of low end frequencies that are just not conducive to guitar or conducive to guitar tones.
Right.
Like those tones, especially in the guitar world, people love to talk about save the low end for the bass, and I believe that to an extent. And of course, everything's situational. But with these things for sure, like you want the low note. You don't want all the low bass and the mud that comes with it.
Exactly.
So like knowing that and at least having heard the type of stuff that you guys play and being somewhat familiar with it, no, like I wouldn't dial in my tones maybe necessarily exactly the same, but I know what that type of genre requires from the guitar in order to get the sound that you guys need.
So you're like inherently already tailoring it to what you think I want to hear anyways?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So like maybe I would dial it slightly differently, but it would also depend on how I would play it too.
Right.
Like, maybe I pick a little bit harder. Maybe I pick a little bit softer. It's going to really depend on the person playing. So when somebody's playing, it's really easy for me to dial in a tone that sounds good. But like, how did that feel to play?
Yeah, it felt great. I mean, like I said, I have this amp at home and I've really liked it. This sounds better than when I tried it with an 8-string. I think that's why in my demo video of it, I ended up going with a 7-string because that's usually what I try to do is I'll go 8 first.
Yeah.
And if it's a little like, then I'll switch to 7 and do like the middle ground between. Like I don't want it to be too high tuned, too low tuned.
Right.
Somewhere in the middle. But yeah, what you did here sounds really good, and I'll have to do that at home and try it again.
The one thing that you mentioned, the last thing that I did was I just bumped up the tone on the Walrus Fundamental Drive. I've never used this overdrive pedal before, but as soon as we switched it into the bright mode, it kind of sounded like a little bit more of a modern tube screamer type thing. And usually on those pedals, the more you push the tone, the more that pushes up the upper mids and the high end. And in return, no, that doesn't necessarily bring your bass and your low mids down, but in relation, like when you hear more high mids, then the low mids and the bass aren't going to be as prevalent in the tone.
Right.
So it's going to give you more of that like attacky, like scratchy sound, which of course I think goes well with these guitars.
Yeah,
so.
literally the
Exactly.
like that shit.
The yank.
The gent tone.
Yeah. Let's. I'm actually excited to do this one because I've never played the HT Stage 100 Mark III.
Okay.
So
I tried this exact guitar with this amp already on my own without Kyle and no pedals, and I thought it sounded actually like shockingly good.
Let's do it without a pedal then.
And
then I'll click it on.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds good.
I'm curious because if you thought it sounded good without a pedal, then I feel like I should be able to get it there too.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a challenge for you now.
Right.
You better do that.
And if I don't, I'm gonna throw it out the fucking window. All right. So ready?
Oh wait, did we switch the thing?
No, just do it.
No, but like
no, just go.
I was like, is this actually what's happening right now?
I was waiting for you to be like, what are you doing, man? All right, let's do this for real now.
Oh god, the noise gate is way too high. Again, it's sounding really good on that, but the pump
is yeah, so you would need a little bit more gain. We're actually almost out of gain, so let's max it out.
There's like, if I remember correctly, there's OD1, OD2, and then there's like that voice switch as well.
So
so you're already doing that.
Yeah, so play.
Okay. So it was definitely where we wanted it already.
Yeah, so this is basically... That's as close as we can get it to the way we would want it without the overdrive in front.
Right.
So once we kick the overdrive on, that'll give us the saturation that you want to make those palm mutes sound a little bit more punchy.
That's sustain.
This fucking sustain, bro.
Brother.
But we're gonna have to make some changes because this is also going to change around the frequencies going into the front of the amp. So we'll do stuff and things, and then some noises will come out.
We're professionals.
Yeah, let's go. Dude, that voice switch, massive difference.
Huge difference.
Like, it literally, it takes the mids and it shifts them up.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you feel like it sounds a little boxy or a little bulbous, as I like to call it, in the low mids, like, anything you can do to shift those mids higher if you're going for a heavy tone, especially if you want a nice, tight, percussive low end. It's not just the lows. The low mids have a lot to do with that sound, and generally you want those low mids out of there if you want a nice punchy or a tight low end, and that's literally exactly what this voice switch does. It's almost like a tube screamer without the clipping and without the extra output. Like, it adds those same frequencies to the tone, kind of carves off the low end a little bit. So that's pretty cool that they put the voice switch in there. It actually reminds me a lot of the St. James, because the St. James has the...
Yeah.
Is it called voice on that? Yeah, it's a channel 2 voice. So, like, for Andrew's stuff, I don't like that or I do like the voice. For Andrew stuff, I don't like anything he's doing, but I'm here as a favor.
You can just say it, man.
Yeah, he owes me money, so that's why I'm here. No, but for real, like the voicing switch, like for the more modern tone, and that's what I've been telling people, a lot of these modern amps, like that does exactly what you need, which is moves those mids up at the right frequency to really get kind of that like vocal thing going on with the strings. For somebody like me who plays like boomer metal, like we don't want that, because it's just when you're in those higher tunings, it's too abrasive. Too much of the low mids and the low end are gone, even though I like a tight, you know, percussive thing myself. But when you're tuning that much higher, the frequencies that you want are just going to be different. So
just ends up sounding like really trebly or something like
that.
Yeah,
yeah, it's not good.
The other thing I was going to mention real quick before we wrap up too is like, I don't know if you played with that ISF knob at all.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool. Because I remember when I dialed this in personally, I had the ISF actually like surprisingly like 60%, like a little bit more towards the other side.
Yeah.
And you have it like just dimed the complete other way.
Yeah, man. So like with the Blackstar ISF, I've always noticed that like it always is the same on every amp for me. I always have it either almost all the way or all the way turned to the left.
Which is like the American sound.
Yeah, yeah, because when you turn it to the right, like...
Yeah, I agree with you, but it's interesting because it didn't... it sounded better than I thought it was going to on that side, because again, that's kind of like a bit more of like the like British sound, like an orange or something like that.
For sure.
Which I again also don't normally associate it with this type of instrument.
Right.
So I was a little surprised that I actually did kind of like a little bit of it in there, because I agree, like on the St. James I always had it like completely off, but on this one for some reason I thought it sounded actually pretty good. Yeah.
So it's like it's nice because of course I went to the extreme with it just because that's what my ear liked. But the cool thing about it being a dialable
instead of just a switch
is you can find that sweet spot in between and kind of blend them both. And on this side, exactly what I was just talking about, I kind of figured for your stuff, like you wouldn't really like it over to the side too much because it brings in those
low end. Yeah.
It's the low end and those low mids, and it rolls off that top end, and that's not what you want for that type of stuff typically from what I've heard. So I kind of, as soon as I rolled it to the left, I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I picture that tone, like what you would want. So
makes sense.
Yeah, man.
Cool. Well, this was a nice and easy video. Again, be sure to go check out Kyle's channel. It'll be linked in the description or the tag or whatever YouTube is doing nowadays. I'm a professional, I swear. Yeah. But definitely go check out his channel. Again, big thank you to Henning Pauly for putting on this event. As always, all the brands, Ibanez, Blackstar, Orange, Walrus Audio, and so on and so forth. Their logos will all be on the screen as well. Big thank you to everyone involved in 42 Gear Street. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude. It's been
glad
a blast
to
so far.
finally make a video with Kyle. We hung out for a week a month ago and made no videos together somehow.
Zero content, yeah.
Because again, we're professionals,
we're
like I keep saying. Yeah.
Are you gonna demonetize this video?
I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't swear on my channel, so I got to get it out on other people's channels.
I'm too lazy to censor myself. It's
too
just
much
the way I
extra
talk,
work.
I guess.
Right,
I don't know.
Right.
Much to my mom's dismay, who watches all of my videos.
Well, we're all pieces of shit, so
Exactly.
it's okay.
We're all garbage.
We all made something out of ourselves. Paid YouTube chills.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, that's going to be it. Thank you all for watching. We look forward to your comments. Go check out Child's channel. Jesus Christ, it's time for this video to end. Goodbye.
Yeah, we're out of here.